Hello YouTube, Mewtwo here with a vlog style video I suppose, and I wanted to discuss I was going to discuss the kind of video game industry and perhaps there's a bit of a downturn it's in at the moment, but I decided to get a little more specific and instead talk about game and its troubles. Now, for those that do not know, Game is a UK retailer. They're kind of like the UK equivalent of GameStop in America. They have hundreds and hundreds of stores. Typically they have like multiple stores in the same small town type of scenario. And they started off as, believe it or not, they were actually bought out by Electronic Boutique. This was in the early 90s, and when they merged together, essentially it was more of a merger I think than anything, they formed the Game Group PLC, and all the EBs became games later on. Just as then they bought the Game Group bought all of Game Station shops, and the focus on retro diminished, and they were kind of trying to bring it in line with the Game Group kind of standards. But ultimately, they're a big kind of chain of game retail stores that have been operating throughout Europe. Really, they're largely in the UK, some stores in Ireland, but they have stores outside of Ireland and UK as well, and they've been operating for must be 20 years now. A few weeks back, as a lot of UK viewers would be aware, they had fairly negative financial outlook, and their credit's been cut off. So publishers now are looking for cash up front in order for them to send on stock. That has resulted in them not having the latest games, so they haven't got Mass Effect 3, The Last Story, Kid Icarus Uprising. I don't think they have anything from EA coming forward. I seen that Shen Muzo had an amusing EA Sports style video. EA Sports, it's not in game, as a kind of a response to that. And at the moment, at least in the UK, they're having what you could nearly call a fire sale. And they're calling it their spring sale, and they always do a spring sale, and I've usually felt that they've been good sales in the past. But in the UK, at the very least, like, their games are like £1 and £2, and decent games, not just crap. Like, you can make up some good stuff. So that's definitely more than your average sale, and it does come across that we need cash fast, and they're clearly trying to avoid administration. I believe they're looking for a buyer to buy out the group. Whether or not that will come to pass, I don't know. So even though I've spent several minutes now rambling on as a bit of a backstory, really what I want to kind of just talk about was the impact that game had on me as a gamer in Ireland, and where the potential demise of the store, what that would mean going forward. So I'll just talk about my own kind of experience with the store first. Now I tried to cover the number, but I have a fairly old game card. Like, it's the old variety apparently, when their web address was game.uk.com, which is a slightly odd address. And it was, this card must be more than a decade old. I mean, I've been going there for years. I know I was definitely going there during when it still had Master System games, because I remember going up with my parents to, I think it was the Tala, the Square shopping centre at the time, because I don't think they had Blanchardstown shopping centre. I live in the country, so we'd basically drive up to Dublin to a shop, because that's all you could do. And I remember going into gaming there, and because I'd never been into a game shop, a true game shop at the time, it was like going into like Toyland or something. It was just insane, walls full of games, and like more than like 6 Master System games, holy hell. You know, new ones, titles I'd never seen before, other than maybe in the Sega catalogue. I remember picking out Sonic Chaos. I'd never even heard of Sonic Chaos on the system, and you know, showing it to my parents. Oh, there's a new Sonic game. There's a new Sonic game. And sure enough, I got that for Christmas. I actually kind of remember it well being ushered out of the store so that they could buy it without me knowing. But they were ushering me out. Of course, I knew. And the sorry, I got distracted there. The where was I going? Dum, dum, dum. Oh yes, visits the game. The kind of general feeling I had was always positive, and that kind of led through the N64, the PlayStation era. Even I think I tried out a Saturn in there very early on, and more in Blanchardstown than anything when that centre opened up. And it was always a decent shop. It had a decent set of games. You'd have decent sales. They really hadn't pre-owned stuff at the time, not much anyway. At the start of the GameCube era, that's when I remember the pre-owned stuff coming in, because I got a pre-owned GameCube not a hell of a long time after it launched. I remember getting a fairly good deal. I got a box black GameCube, a couple of controllers, a couple of memory cards, and a Star Wars Rogue Leader for maybe 120, 30 quid, something like that. Which I was chuffed with because the GameCube was still fairly new at the time. But however, they were the kind of the good days, you could say, and since then there's been a greater and greater emphasis on pre-owned, and the corporate policy seems to have changed. At the time, I never would have been pushed on, do you want to pre-order something? Do you have games to trade in? Do you want to buy a strategy guide for that or whatever? Nowadays, that's all there seems to be. I mean, they're bags. Obviously, it's pre-owned is big business. That's where the kind of retailers make their money now. And as a little aside, I have a fair understanding of the business model because I looked into it before. And at least in Ireland, if you were to look at a big hit game, something like Braintree, the distributors wanted about €20 for the one stock unit, and the retail price of that was €30. So then you had tax on top of it. Your profit from that game was going to be about £7 or €7, maybe 8. And then you have to pay rent, staff, lighting, heating, insurance, different business costs, accountants, etc., legal fees. That €8 isn't going very far, and it's not a great margin. Not when you consider what's involved in having a retail outlet. So I could empathise with the problem, and with pre-owned, well, they don't pay the distributor that high initial cost. They pay you to trade in. They charge nearly the same, but they get a much bigger margin. I from their perspective, I can understand why they do it, and I do not have any great gripe with the move to a good chunk of the store being pre-owned. With the modern market as it is, that's what they have to do to kind of keep their profits healthy. It's more that their attitude has changed too. If you even phone up the store, it'll just ask them like what their opening hours are or anything like that. It's always, well, have you got anything that you want to pre-order? Have you got anything you want to trade in? No, leave me alone. You have that stuff on your bags. You have signs all over your store. Chances are you walk through the door and you'll be accosted by a staff member asking you that crap. I know you trade in stuff. I'm looking at pre-owned stuff. How do you think it got there? If I had something to trade in, I would trade it in. As it turns out, and they'd know from my account because I use I swipe it all the time, I don't trade anything in. They would know that. Stop asking me. And I always have, swipe this first. Then ask the question. I do not trade stuff in. But I understand that the staff have to ask. but it's ridiculous. It's overkill. It's kind of too much push, 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 and I think that has generated kind of relatively bad sentiment. However, I would still say, compared to their competition, at least here, they are better. I mean, I don't like GameStop at all. I think their prices are woeful and game are better than probably 70% of the time. So from that perspective, if Game were to close, I would be pretty disappointed. And in general, if you have less competition in the market, it's a bad thing. And then you have all those people are going to lose their jobs, and it's you have perhaps another nail in the coffin of the retailer. You'll be stuck with just digital downloads and buying stuff online, where you won't you can't avail of pre-owned if you like to trade your games in, so you can't release the equity in your title. You can't check the price in another shop because they may be doing a deal, or if you pre-own it or pre-order it, you might get a $5 off. That's not an option anymore, because you only have say the Sony network, where you only can buy it from the one place, so that's the price it is. Tough if you don't like it. So anything that kind of pushes towards that as being the only option is bad. I find it interesting as well that I've gone into Game a few times since this news has kind of broke, and in Ireland they do not have the same push for this kind of fire sale scenario as they do in the UK, and I would suspect that they're not in as bad a shape over here as they are over there. And the same is true for chains like HMV. HMV are probably in worse shape than Game. Like, they are in bad way. They had to sell off Waterstones, and they're trying to basically get as much money as they can to stave off administration. Again, they're a retailer. They're in an industry where the value of the commodities they sell is in a very, very big downward trend. People do not value it, so they don't want to spend. Now in Ireland, the Irish HMV stores made a profit last year of about 50 million. That sounds like a lot in some ways, but it was down from I don't know, it was an insane number the year before, or 2 years before the kind of recession really kicked in. Like, basically that was a tiny, tiny fraction. So they consider that a devastating, result. It's funny. I only made 50 million. That's devastating. How will I cope? Apparently they can't, because they were trying to prop up all the UK stores that were hemorrhaging money. And I'm guessing maybe Game might be the same way, because there hasn't been the same sort of everything must go approach to their stores. So I don't know. A lot of people seem to be quite happy with this kind of attitude of couldn't happen to a more deserving guy type of thing. You could take that approach, but I think it'll be bad for the industry in the long run if we lose a big chain like that. Will they be bought out? Hard to say. Will they liquidize enough assets to keep going? Again, hard to say. Anyway, I think I've rambled on enough. I've probably forgotten even part of the stuff I wanted to say, but the video will be long enough as it is, so we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back with another review shortly. Bye for now.